welcome to the webinar. I'm Alex O'Neill, and I'm joined by Mark Topley, who, Mark, I'll hand over to you in a bit. You can introduce yourself at the beginning if you want. So today's webinar is on the CSR Advantage, your key to a more successful practice. Essentially, I think we probably first spoke 3 or 4 years ago, I'd imagine. It seems to have flown by, and Mark was setting up his company, or just set up your company at that point, and the conversation was around how essential this is for practices to operate ethical, value-based businesses, and I'm all about that, and I think that every business should have that. That's almost the foundations and the core of your business. And I did a webinar I think it was earlier on this year or at the end of last year, about 2022 being the year to sort of rebuild your culture, your leadership, the foundations of your business, because to me, human beings are tribal and we want to belong to something. And a lot of people, not a lot, but there's a number of practices out there that I think are set up more as a vehicle for making money sometimes, rather than having a mission, a vision, a purpose. And if you have a mission, a vision, a purpose, then a recruitment conversation or a retention conversation becomes a lot more about, do you want to be with us on our journey? Do you want to go where we're going? And this is what we stand for. And people like that, and they want to belong and they want to achieve, and it opens up a whole other world of career development and other things. And I think everyone's struggling with recruitment right now, but I think the practices that are probably struggling the most are the ones that don't have anything to sell to a candidate or to a. So I think that this is probably the most valuable webinar that we will do this year, and I think that for the people who've come on this, I think this is brilliant that you've come here. You are forward-thinking business people who are interested in really learning. Dentistry is slower to adopt things generally, and big businesses have been doing this stuff for years, not just because it works, but because it's right. But it's I think I've probably covered it enough now. But I'll hand over to Mark. The way this will work is I'll hand over to Mark. Mark will do his presentation, and then at the end he'll hand back to me, and we'll do a Q&A. We've worked, for those of you who are interested, if you're not iComply members already, Mark and I have worked together, and we've developed a CSR overview guidance document and a CSR policy template, and there's an optional activity in iComply if you want to include this in your governance cycle and in your management cycle. So if you are interested in that, then a pop-up's going to click up on the screen in a second, and then you can click on that just to book a demo with our team. Obviously, if you already have iComply, you have this, you do not need to book a demo with our team. You can just ring the helpline and say, how do I get access to this? What's the document code? But if you type in CSR in iComply in the top right, you should get that. So I will now hand over to Mark. So Mark, all over to you.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Alex. And good afternoon, everybody. My mission for the next 45 minutes is all about helping you to create a really exciting approach to your business and to the way that you lead your business that's going to help you to achieve even greater success in the truest, deepest sense. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about purpose, contribution, responsibility, and CSR, and show you that they're not just another group of buzzwords, but they are something that you can and you should use to your advantage, because when you do that, then everybody wins. And I want you to walk away with some tools that you can implement immediately. I want you to feel inspired and clear about how you're going to do it. And I want to demystify CSR for you and show you that this is so much more than a tick box exercise. And when it's done right, it creates a ripple win effect that just keeps on adding value in every part of the business. So what I'm going to be talking about is why this matters, internally, externally, philosophically, what CSR is made up of. You're going to see that you're doing most of this already, and it's about the choices that you make in how you approach the business rather than just doing loads more stuff. And I'm going to show you how to do it, why structure and team engagement is really important. And I've got an offer for you as well, which I'm quite excited about sharing with you. So during the presentation, we're going to have some polls. and they'll appear on the screen. So please do participate in those when they appear. If we've not met, then this is me. I have, my name is Mark Topley. I have a long, some would say checkered career. I've done all sorts of different things in my time. I have been a teacher. I've worked in international projects, in charity startup. I worked in the music industry for a number of years. And then back in 2003, a chance encounter with a dentist, and which involved a curry, took me and my wife to Tanzania, where we worked on the startup of a charity called Bridge to Aid. We worked there for 13 years, 10 of those in residence. And during that time, I worked with a number of really good companies and saw some of the great practice there was around CSR and how CSR could be made to be a competitive advantage where not just the business, but the community and the team benefited as well. And 2017, when I left Bridge to Aid, it was with this idea to pursue a dream of helping business owners to create places where people love to work, because they have values, because they have purpose, because they do the right things, and because they're excellently run. And I brought the experience of being the chief executive of Bridge to Aid with all those, working with all those companies to create my model, which I'm going to share with you today, and then was subsequently awarded my fellowship at the Institute of Corporate Sustainability and Responsibility Professionals, which is a right old mouthful. So that's a little bit about me. So why does this stuff matter? Well, I want you to imagine a point in time in the future. And it's going to be the day that you leave your business. Now, you're no doubt going to have a celebration of some kind. Whether you're retiring or you're selling, you're going to want to mark the occasion. Do you ever wonder what that day will be like? What do you hope that people will say at that party that you have? Because the choices that you make today and every day will be what determines the things that are said when you leave your business. Are you putting your values into practice every single day? You know, how did you care about your people? What contribution did you make to your community? Were you honest, fair, and transparent, and a responsible person to do business with? As Annie Dillard says, how we spend our days is, of course, how we spend our lives. And we instinctively know that this is true. Simon Sinek says that no one writes their net worth on their tombstone. You know, success is much deeper than that. But finding a successful way to put your values into practice through your people, social, and environmental choices is hard. But that's where CSR, or corporate social responsibility, comes into play. It's all about embodying your purpose, creating a legacy, taking responsibility, and making a contribution to your community. It's going to give you a solid and successful framework through which to live out your values, create your legacy, and enjoy working in your business a whole lot more. And as well as an internal drive to have purpose, we've also got to bear in mind that we're responding to some changes in consumer and societal expectation, which have become increasingly important in the last few years. And I just want to sum some of those up for you. The past 2 years in particular, we've kind of started to realize that the planet is in real trouble. Global warming is on the increase. We're seeing more and more extreme weather conditions. We're seeing the impact of pollution on health. We are, as a species, killing ourselves. There's a crisis of well-being we've not seen in generations. We're the most obese and depressed generation there's ever been. And we've seen some changes which started, you know, a couple of years back now with the rumblings of Black Lives Matter, with Me Too. We started to ask ourselves more questions about how we live. You know, the influences of the pandemic turned that up to full volume. George Floyd's murder, Greta Thunberg, you know, the Blue Planet documentaries have all brought us to the place where people are asking the same two questions. What on earth are we doing in terms of how we live our lives, and why are we doing it this way? And what's interesting for me is that over the past 2 years, the subcultures around some of these things have become mainstream, driven primarily by the people in your practice that are aged under 35, Generation Z, which you'll see in a moment. They've been really brought to the forefront. And now it's important to remember that not everybody is changing. There are businesses that just don't care, and they're going to carry on doing business, and some of them will be successful. but nobody is not asking the questions. And we're realizing that our traditional approaches to doing business are kind of on their last legs. The values of sustainability, of caring for people, about not using up all natural resources, about respect, they're not now being demanded. And, a lot of the bigger brands are starting to respond. To summarize it, basically what's happened is that people now want different things from work. Business has got a bad reputation, the environment is suffering, and social disparity is on the rise. And we need to do something about that. An important statistic to bear in mind is that 9 out of 10 of the people that walk into your dental practice now say that they expect you to do good as a day-to-day aspect of your business. And that's a big statistic. Thought leaders like Chris Barrow are pointing to the same thing. When patients look for quality, what they take into consideration more than just that clinical excellence, great environment, customer service. They're interested in seeing your core values. What kind of practice are you to do business with? Can I trust you? And you see this because the most visited page on most dental websites is Meet the Team. It's not about the treatments that you can provide. People want to see an expression of your values. When it comes to employees, these are the statistics around what other people expect. This is a report published back in 2021 now. ED, who surveys across sustainable leadership, this big trend of expecting to do more CSR in a response to the pandemic, and also identifying CSR as being the primary megatrends that would be part of the business world. Now, that was a great foresight because that was 2021, the beginning of 2021. Very shortly after that, the Great Resignation began. And the two megatrends that were identified in that 77% were people and well-being and environment and sustainability. So these things are important. Now, the good news is that if you do show yourself to be a responsible practice, a responsible business, then people respond in kind. So although 88% of people will expect responsibility, 93% of those will have a better image of you, they will be more loyal to you, and they will trust you more if you can demonstrate those things. Employees as well are showing the same things. In responsible businesses, teams in responsible businesses are 65% more engaged. They're 4 times less likely to leave. That's a big stat for you. They're 18% more productive because they make fewer mistakes, and they create 15% higher turnover. Now, they also generate 120% on ROI for salary. That's a stat that Gallup came up with. A disengaged employee will produce around 80%. So you've got a 40% swing in ROI in terms of salary from a disengaged to an engaged employee. This stuff isn't just fluff. This really makes a difference on the bottom line. The under 35s in particular, more loyal to a company that helps them to contribute, and 75% of the employees that are out there that are under 35 are looking for good CSR and employers. Again, important for recruitment. And then they will pay that back in spades. If you care about them, if you care about the environment, if you care about your community, they will engage, they will advocate for the business. You've got a sales machine there that is going to be working for you 24 hours a day. And only 3% of those employees that are disengaged will actually advocate for the business. So it makes solid business sense to take care of this stuff. Right, the first of our polls, please, Frankie, if you can get that on the screen for me. Quick question for you. What percentage of the public expect you to act responsibility as a day-to-day aspect of your business? Give you 5 or 10 seconds to do the answers on that one. And let's see the results. I can't actually see the results, so I'm just going to guess when I think they may have appeared. Okay, so the answer to that is 88%. So 88% of people. So if you guessed below 88%, you need to readdress. It's not quite at 96%, although the latest stat that I saw just the other day pointed it to 91% now. So that's gone up 3 percentage points in the last couple of years. Great stuff. So let's move on. What are we talking about? What is corporate sustainability and responsibility? Well, Collective, so corporate or collective just means together, all of us doing the same thing together. Sustainability, meeting our needs without compromising the needs of future generations. And then finally, making a contribution to society through running our business. And we're going to take each one of these things in turn. There are 3 pillars to CSR: people and ethics, environment and sustainability, and charity and community. We're going to go through each one. So moving on to people. People, whenever I start work with a new client, and I work across a range of different aspects, which I'll explain later, the first thing I do is I work on the story of the business. And this is what Alex was alluding to at the beginning of the webinar. Rather than if you haven't got a story to invite people into, then you are missing a trick, because that is what people are looking for. So what I do is I encourage them to begin with the end in mind, as I did with the beginning of this presentation. I ask them what they want their personal and professional legacy to be. And time again, it's not about money. It's about making a difference and being a decent human being. And usually at the top of the list is people, because people matter. The people in our businesses matter. They matter more than anything else. But what matters more to people? Well, the recruitment crisis we've currently got raises some questions about what people really want. And I'm going to get you to guess now. I'm going to give you 4 options. If you can open the next poll, please, Frankie. Out of these 4, what do your people want most? What's more important to people when it comes to workplace happiness? Is it A, money? Is it B, development? Is it C, culture? Or is it D, leadership? Good leadership. What's the most important thing? And I'm going to give you the results of a survey that was done about 5 years ago now, but still rings true in terms of what the most important thing in terms of determining workplace happiness. Right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so the most important factor, let's see if you guessed it right. The most important factor for workplace happiness was published in Harvard Business Review, January 2017, by Andrew Chamberlain of Glassdoor. That's the company that does all the surveying of workplace happiness. And one of the most striking results they found, he says, across all income levels, is the top predictor of workplace satisfaction was not pay. It was not money. It was the culture and values of the organization, followed closely by the quality of senior leadership and the career opportunities at the company. So culture trumps everything. You have to pay attention to this. You have to pay well, but the differentiator is not money. It's about culture. So what do we mean by culture? Well, some quick keys for you in terms of getting your culture right. And this comes from a study that was done on the reasons where culture fails to take root. And there were 5 reasons why culture failed to take root. The first one is that you don't define it. And by define it, I mean that you identify what's important to you in how you do what you do, and then you write that down in terms that people can action. So it's no good having integrity as a value. If honesty is a value, then you might have bigger problems. Or it's no good in having innovation as a value. It has to be something I can do. So thinking outside the box, that's something I can do. So culture has to be defined, and it has to be defined in terms that I can understand and that I can act upon. The second reason why culture fails is that people fail to communicate it. And by that, I don't mean that they have a culture wall and there's the message and nobody ever talks about it. I mean, it has to be talked about on a regular basis in consistent terms, and it has to have flesh put on it. When so-and-so did that the other day, that's what I mean by this value. So point examples to the behavior that you're after. You need to reward culture as well. So good behavior or doing the right things has to be rewarded in some way. You can't just expect people to be true to your culture if there isn't some benefit in whatever terms that might be. And it might be as simple as a simple thank you if there's no benefit for them doing the right things. The next thing that people fail to do is they don't institutionalize the culture. They don't institutionalize the values. And by that, I mean that values applied to absolutely everything you do and the way that you choose to do everything. And a great example of this is like in your recruitment or induction process. So you recruited somebody, they've signed the contract, they're going to start in 2 weeks' time or 3 weeks' time or whatever it might be, and there is radio silence. But communication and caring about people is one of your values. So where's the disconnect? The disconnect is that you haven't brought the value into the way that you do your induction. And that's an exercise that you need to go through to apply your values to every single part of the business. So institutionalized culture is really important. And then the final thing that's really important is you have to model the culture. If you're the leader in your business, or if you're one of the leaders in your business, and you expect your team to behave in the way which is in alignment with the culture, but you don't do it, then no amount of defining it, communicating it, rewarding it, institutionalizing it is going to be strong enough to overcome a poor example. Leadership is the next thing that the Glassdoor survey pointed to, and just 4 things on this for you. So the first thing that's important about leadership is people need to understand what it is that they're part of. What am I joining? And to do that, you need to create what I call a creed. Now, creed is an ancient term, but it simply means a set of statements or beliefs which unite behavior, which unite people and drive behavior. So this is a statement of what it is that we're here to do. So we're here on this planet all as individuals. When we come together under the roof of the dental practice, what's that to do? What difference is that we're trying to make? So create your creed. The next thing is you need to invite people into a story. Now, if you bought your business, or you started your business, or you're in management in the business, there needs to be a story that you're trying to tell through the business. Where did you come from? Why did you start? Why did you open the practice? Why did you buy the practice? What's important to you and how that's done? Where is it you're trying to get to? And what's the role that people that come to work with you play in helping to achieve that vision? And why does that vision matter to the people that you're trying to serve? What problem have your patients got beyond we need their teeth fixed? What problem have they got that they come to you to fix? And what's my role if I come to work for you in helping to achieve that? People want to be invited into a story. Leading with humility is really, really important, and being prepared to do the things that need to be done, rather than operating a hierarchical structure where, well, that's not my job, that's not my responsibility because I'm the boss. If you get that, then there's a vicious circle which you will create the start of, which means that your team will operate in the same way. Humility is really, really important in leadership. And then finally, you need to commit to your own growth. So it's really important that as bosses, as leaders, as people that are in management or leadership in the practice, that we're always growing. If we want our teams to grow, we have to model that, and we have to commit to our own growth. Moving on, developing your people. Training is a given. That's just getting people to do their jobs better. What I'm talking about here is that we need to be doing some things which will help our teams to see that they are part of something, and that it is in their interests to be a part of the business on an ongoing basis. So the first thing is to create clarity around development. Get them to see how being part of the business, how being part of the team, the journey of development that you're going to take them on. What's the pathway? What's the expectation for development over the next 5-10 years? If I'm joining you in a fairly junior role, how are you going to get me to the next place and the next place and the place beyond that? And Richard Branson's quote of, training people so that they can leave, but treating them like so they don't want to, is really key here, because in some ways you do want your people to move on when they've reached a more senior level, but during that time you want to help them to grow, help them to add value to the business, and that will pay back to you in spades. You need to delegate authority and not tasks. If you delegate tasks to people, you're going to create followers. If you delegate authority, you're going to create leaders. And that goes along the lines of creating a coaching mindset in your leadership rather than instruction. If you coach, you're asking questions. How could we have done that better? What do you think a good solution to this problem is? It goes alongside training, but if we instruct, people will just follow our instructions, and that's not going to add value to them or to us. This guy is one of my favorite people in the world. And the reason I bring up the picture of him on the screen is that Innocent came to us when I worked for Bridge to Aid as a taxi driver. He had taught himself to read. He would lived in a rural area of Tanzania. He taught himself to read. He'd got himself a job in the city. And we spotted him very early on and realized that this guy had great values. He had a great attitude and he had a real desire to learn. And so we brought him in, and I show you that picture as an example of bringing people in at a low level and then training them when they've got the right values is absolutely key, because you can bring in stars that have no values and they won't be a fit for your business. It's better not to appoint. And Innocent is now leading the team that implements training programs across Tanzania for Bridge to Aid. So, which is fantastic for me, because we took him through that process of showing him that this was the path we wanted to put him on. We delegated authority, not just tasks, and we coached him through. And now he is in a position of senior leadership. So that is the first part of your legacy, of working out your purpose, the people that we impact positively. This handsome chap is my granddad. He's got a guy called Fred Smith, and he died about 10 years ago now, which is a real shame. He was a great guy, real fun, real joker, real hard worker. And he was a young man during the 1940s. And like many of his generation, he answered the call to go off to fight in World War II. All of his brothers, he was one of 6 brothers, they were all killed. He fought in Burma, and the hat gives that away. And in the face of a global challenge of, some bad stuff was going to happen unless people stepped up. He stepped up in the face of that and responded to the call, a great personal sacrifice. And, thankfully he lived out his years and many others didn't. And the classic question that my generation always asked to his generation was, what did you do in the war? What was your part in winning the war? What choice did you make? And it's not over dramatic, I think, to say that we now face a global environmental crisis of equal proportion. I do believe strongly that in 20 to 30 years' time, our grandchildren will ask me what I did. Did I sleepwalk into the environmental crisis, or was I one of the ones who chose to step up, to make commitments, to make changes, and to see myself as part of a bigger picture? I hope so. And I believe that we're all going to face that same challenge. What about environmentalism in dentistry? I just want to give you a little bit of background into this. Dentistry contributes significant amounts of carbon to the atmosphere. The carbon footprint of NHS dentistry 2013 to 14, so a few years ago now, was equivalent to 50,000 flights, 50,000 return flights between the UK and Hong Kong. And so anything we can do to reduce the environmental footprint, reduce the carbon footprint of what we do as dentists is really, really important. Now, some stats for you from that same study. 31% of your carbon footprint is patient travel, 30% is staff travel, and 19% of it is procurement. So buying the production of the materials that you use. And so there are lots of things that we can and should be doing to reduce our carbon footprint. Reducing it through combining patient appointments or encouraging patients to use non-single car transport wherever we can. Prevention, as long as it's one-to-many, is a great way to reduce the carbon footprint of dentistry, particularly if we take one staff member to a school or an antenatal group and so on, rather than bringing one-to-one preventative work in the practice. Having a travel policy which favors public transport, and then a sustainable procurement policy which favors products and services and companies which are trying to maximize the carbon efficiency of their products. That's really, really important. So carbon is the biggest issue. Travel is the biggest part of carbon, and we need to be able to do something about that. Some other things that we need to be doing in terms of managing our practices in green ways. So recycling everything possible goes without saying, and there are lots of different things that we can do now. We can separate waste in surgery if we're going to separate autoclave pouches, the paper can be recycled. Working hard, I was chatting to a researcher in at Dublin University earlier this week about this whole thing of the difference between a clinically contaminated cup and one which has just had some spittle on it that can be recycled. And I won't go into the clinical aspects and what's approved on that, but there are people working very hard to make sure that is that those cups can be recycled. So, and some debate around whether plastic or bamboo or paper cups is the best thing to be using. The rule of thumb for me is that if something is single use and there's a reusable alternative, then it doesn't matter what the single use is made of, it's better to use the alternative. And that's true across a range of different products that you use in the practice. So recycling, carbon reduction where we can, and offset where we can't. Offset your carbon. It's relatively inexpensive. Once you've worked out what your carbon footprint is, offsetting that is a great way of working towards being a carbon neutral practice, as well at the same time as reducing your carbon by taking steps to reduce your energy usage and those sorts of things. Renewable energy, switching to renewable energy is an important thing to do if you can. Becoming as energy efficient as possible. So part of that could be equipment, or make sure equipment is switched off when it's not in use. Biodiversity, relatively small, but a great thing to do for well-being for the team. If you've got a space outside the practice that you can plant with wildflowers, with native shrubs and bushes, please do that. It's a great way to release oxygen into the air and recycle carbon, as well as providing a nice place for people to sit and fostering insect and bird life. Saving resources wherever possible. Water is a very precious resource. So if you can harvest rainwater, or if you can fit those atomizing devices to the end of your taps, you can reduce the amount of water that you're consuming, which is going to be great for water consumption, but also good for your water bills. Swap out single use wherever possible. Using natural cleaners. An exciting new development which I heard about just a few weeks ago is that there is now a medical grade natural cleaner on the market. And if you send me an email, I'll send you the details of that. But that's very exciting, because that means that chemicals aren't being flushed down the drain when it comes to our waste disposal, but it's all natural products. And then fair trade, and again, a relatively minor, but a great thing to be doing. Managing the sustainable practice. Some key things to remember. Implement a sustainability standard, and for nothing else from the fact that there's a framework to work towards. Now, whether you choose dental CSR certification or green business, or any one of those standards, choose a standard and use it, because it'll be a great way for your team to work towards something and then get the reward of a badge at the end of it. Join networks like Dental Susnet. If you just Google Dental Susnet, it will take you to the membership. They've got free newsletters, and they're regularly publishing peer-reviewed papers with the latest research on what can be done in dentistry. Make sure you put somebody in charge of managing your CSR. Time and time again, I see great ideas fall by the wayside because somebody hasn't been appointed and empowered into a position where they are making sure that the plan happens. Train your staff in what needs to happen and how to do things, and then communicate and advocate for responsible and sustainable business through your website, through your social media. It's a great way to fill out your social media feed with things which aren't just about your latest Invisalign open day. Okay, as great as that is, and it's important to your business as that is, having some stuff about that shows people that you care is really important as well. Actually, I've got a question. I think there's another poll. Yes. So the next poll, can we get that up, please, Frankie? So the question for you on the next poll: what is the size of the NHS carbon footprint? Sorry, no. It's a different one. What's the most significant contributor to your practice's carbon footprint? What's the most significant factor? Is it heating, electricity, travel, or procurement? And I'll give you a few seconds to answer that before we move on. Okay, hopefully you guessed travel. Travel is the most significant contributor to your practices carbon footprint. And 31% of that is your travel, the staff's travel, 30% of it is patient travel. Great stuff. So community, the final aspect of CSR, of being a responsible business. This is my former life when I was chief executive of Bridge to Aid, living and working in Tanzania. And we ran training programs in emergency dentistry in some very rural and remote areas. And many of them were run in partnership with this company, Barrick, in very, very far-flung locations. You can see there on the map there, that's where we used to run some of our training programs, and the middle of there is the middle of nowhere. But that is where 80% of the population lives in a developing country. And the reason I show that is that I remember a particular conversation around this issue, around community contributions from business. And it's July 2008. It's central London. We're in the penthouse office suite of what was then Barrick Gold, is now African Barrick Gold, and then Acacia Mining. Think plush office in West London. We're in the CEO's office. It's a newly appointed CEO. We're in a meeting. We've been working with them for some time, and things are going great. And we're there to ask for greater support for partnership. And the new CEO said something which has sat with me to this day. He said, we're in these communities for 30 years. That's the life cycle of a gold mine. We've got a moral and ethical obligation to leave these communities in a better place than when we found them. And it struck me because hopefully all of our businesses will last the same amount of time, possibly longer. And the question is, I guess, what will our contribution be? How will we contribute to people? How will we contribute to charity? Can we be cheerleaders for other businesses? Can we be part of providing, education to younger and much older generations? What kind of legacy can we leave? I think it's really important to consider those things and approach that from a strategic point of view, rather than sighing when the new requests for raffle donations come through the door. If we can get out in front of this, then we can make the most of the opportunity. And there are some key things to remember in this. When it comes to making charity partnerships work, it's very important to find causes that fit. So don't choose charities and community and causes that don't fit with either your sector, so dentistry, they don't fit with the geography, or they don't fit with the strategic intent of your business. What is it that you're particularly committed to? You make it work by fitting the choice of charity to the type of business that you are. And the reason you do that is because it's more likely that people will engage, both staff and patients, and it won't be seen as something additional and another thing we've got to do around here in addition to everything else we've got to do. It'll be seen much more as part of what we do, as a part of who we are. So fit is the first thing. Partnership is the second thing. And that means not just doing one-off little sporadic things here and there, but by approaching a local charity or local group and saying, look, we want to support you for the next couple of years. It's not going to be masses of money, but we're aiming to raise, X amount of money over the next 2 years. What could that help pay for? What kind of outcome would that create? And so that we can then tie that to a target. And rather than saying to our patients or our team, or we're trying to raise, money for XYZ, we can say we're 50% of our goal towards our goal of raising enough money to pay for this thing, or this number of treatments, or this number of homeless rooms. Whatever it is, have a tangible target. And then finally, support your team in participating in those things. Don't just say, okay, we've chosen a charity and then do nothing about it, expecting your team to do all the legwork. Encourage them and support them to do things, and make sure you've got skin in the game as a business as well. You need to be for your community. There are lots of things you can be doing, and part of your community response surely has got to be, okay, we're on all of our local independent businesses' Instagram feeds, and we're cheering for what they do. We're resharing what they do. We are championing the cause of our local businesses. So that's it. That's the final part of your legacy, which is all about community. So how do we actually do this in practice? Well, the simple thing to remember is that successful CSR requires a systematic approach, which is a lot of S's to say, but you do need a systematic approach to this. The first and most important aspect of the work is to work out why CSR matters to you and why it is that you're doing it. Create your foundation. What is the purpose behind doing this? Why does it matter to us? And why are we doing it? From that, we then create commitments. So the commitments that we make will be we want to be a business that cares about our people. We want to be a business that protects the environment. We want to be a business that looks after our local community. Make your commitments, and from that, you can then create your plan. Your plan will just be a set of commitments and some ideas about the things that you could do to fulfill your commitments. But before you get into too much detail, what you want to do is you want to engage. You want to engage your team in putting the flesh on the bones of the structure that you've created with your foundation, your commitments, and your initial plan. So get your team on board at that stage. Your team will then make a contribution and they will help you to communicate what it is that you're committed to. Now, the things that you need to remember, why is it that we're committed to these things? What it is that we're committed to, and how we're going to outwork those commitments. When you've communicated, you can then begin implementation. And this is where things tend to fall down, because if you don't have somebody in place to manage the project, if you don't have some accountability for the plan, then chances are it will get tough. So make sure you are supporting the person that you've appointed to make sure the plan is implemented. Work the plan. And then along the way, you need to certify, because certifying gives people something to work towards. It gives them a point in time at which they can say, look, we achieved something and we're going to certify. We've got this badge to prove that we've done what we said we're going to do. And then finally, you're going to review. You're going to review the whole process, work out what worked, work out what didn't, and then go back to the next stage, which is creating your plan. So the final poll that we've got for you, if we can get that on the screen, please, Frankie, the final poll. What is the first step in creating a successful CSR plan? Is it gathering ideas for sustainability, gathering ideas for fundraising, choosing a charity, or identifying your purpose and why CSR matters? Give you 5 or 10 seconds to answer that question. And the answer is the final one. Identify your purpose and why CSR matters, because that becomes the platform on which you base everything else. So that's all very well and good, Mark, but does this actually work in practice? Well, I'm pleased to say it does. And here's a couple of people who will back me up on this. For Angela at Dental Rooms in Wimbledon, she's found CSR to be a powerful way to inspire the team. It gives them energy. It gives them something to be engaged with and enthusiastic about. It adds real value to the team. And this quote was in January of 2021. And remember back to what things were like in January 2021. So I'm really pleased with that quote. This is Joe Batt, who runs a specialist practice in just outside of London. Systematic application was key for him. He really pleased with what happened. Great way to get the team organized around things and looking forward to making things happen again in the future. So back to that picture that we started with at the beginning. Taking you back to that question about how you want that retirement day, that sale day, that day when you pass things on. What happens then can be significantly boosted by or hindered by what you do next. So go back to that day and decide how you want to respond. The first steps towards building that legacy about living your purpose start today. Otherwise, this webinar will just be a nice thing that we watched and was, hopefully enjoyable. Or is it going to be something that's going to become something part of what is the raison d'etre for your business? Or is it just going to go on the important but non-urgent pile? Well, I can help with some of these things. This is how my business works. So I work across the Great Boss Bootcamp, which is people loving to work for a great boss, working in a great team. But the one with the arrow next to it, the Great Boss CSR Academy is a systematic process that I can take you through, which will help you to put these things into practice. And I have a number of different ways that I can help you with this. If you want a short online course, then Sustainability in 60 Minutes is a great option for you. It's 4 guided video tutorials, 4 simple worksheets, and a CSR plan in 60 minutes. That's my promise to you. And there are various bonuses that you can add on to that. Official price is £79, but if you put friends 10 in at the checkout, it'll give you a 10% discount for attending this webinar. The other way I can help is the CSR Academy. And this is a 1-year done for you and with you process where I engage you in each of the aspects of the process that I talked about, and step by step over the course of the year, I take you through the process. So you can find more ways to get started on my website. If you either scan that QR code or go to marktopley.co.uk/start, they'll give you some options there. I think the cheapest option is even a little ebook that I've written, which sets out the process that I use as well as the why behind it. So this, ladies and gentlemen, I do believe is the future of business, and it is a really, really good future. It's a way that rebalances the needs of everybody in a way where everybody wins. You know, the team's going to win, the patients are going to win, society wins, the planet wins, and you win. Because it is about working out your purpose and your values, making sure that you're impacting your people in the way you want to, you're impacting the planet in a way that you want to, and you are choosing to use your time and your resources to lift up your community. So what's your decision? What are you going to do? I hope what you're going to do is head to the website and download one of the resources to help you get started.
Mark, just one of your slides at the end. I think do you have this is just out of pure interest. Have you got a new program there on? Was it Good Boss or something? I think it was Great Boss. What did you call it?
Yeah,
That's
so
something else.
So this is basically what I do now. So my mission is to help people build businesses where people love to work. That's the thing. So Great Boss Bootcamp is a 10-week program to help you to become a great boss. And once you've been through the bootcamp, you can join the academy, which is a continual process. That it's a monthly membership club. It's very kind of manageable in terms of the amount of time that people spend online and working on things. And then I do new products is Great Boss Team Builder, which is working in a great team, which is all about culture and purpose and all those sorts of things. And then the CSR Academy is the CSR specific thing. Although what we can do is we can bolt all 3 of these together or 2 of these together, depending on what the client wants.
I should definitely catch up with you about this because I'm all about that. One of the best things I ever went on was the Dale Carnegie Ethical Communication Leadership course, and it was very much about how to be a great boss, and I learned so much from that. So that looks like that, but for dentistry, which I think is brilliant. So I think that's it looks like a great new business. Okay, well, thank you everybody. The last pop-up's going to come up if you've listened to all of this and you're suddenly like, I'd love to get iComply and get access to this policy template, or if you're just interested in talking to us about our system and our products and what's coming up, then please click on that link and book in a chat with someone. Mark, if you want to go, if you're interested in going to Mark directly and downloading his ebook or signing up for his coaching or the Great Boss Academy, then that's on there, marktopley.co.uk/start. Just wanted to say just a real thank you to everyone for joining us as always on your lunch break. We know time is precious, and giving your time to something like this, I think, is investing in yourself and investing in the company, and actually potentially even investing in the future. So, Mark, anything you want to add before we call it a day?
No, thanks for joining. I hope it's been useful. Reach out to me if I can help. Good luck.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.